Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Zechariah 4, verse 6. Welcome to Martial Arts Past and Present with Sensei Ed Briz. Interviews and discussions with martial artists from around the world, along with tournament perspectives.
Welcome to another show of Martial Arts Past and Present. I am Sensei Ed Briz. My hope is that you will continue on this martial arts journey with me. Today's guest is Hanshi Don Matthews, a 9th degree black belt, school owner, author, and founder and executive director of Warriors Legacy Hall of Fame. Hanshi Matthews, welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, Sensei Ed. Glad to be here and talk about martial arts.
That's what we're looking forward to. Don, you've spent most of your life in martial arts. When you first started training, did you ever imagine it would become a lifelong commitment?
Not in the least bit. Wasn't even a thought in my head back then. I started in 1983, and I was in Tongshudo. And back then, there was no internet. There was no Googling anything to find out about a school or about an owner and things like that. And so I went to the Yellow Pages, which was about a 1/4 inch thick where I live, and there were nothing but ads. And so I picked the best ad that I thought fit what I was looking for, because I was looking for some kind of self-defense. I knew nothing else other than that. We knew the term karate, we knew the term judo and Aikido, but within karate, you didn't know styles. There was no such thing. And
Right.
so I looked at this ad, and this guy said he was a Green Beret in the South Korean Army, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then it said he was a Green Beret and a presidential bodyguard in the United States, and I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. And so I went to his school and did an interview, and he did some things that were pretty off the wall, and I'm like, man, I want to learn from this guy.
Mhm.
And so it was, like I say, it was Tongshudo Mudu Kwan. I didn't know any different, but I started training, and it was 2.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and
That long?
that
Wow.
long, yeah. And then there's no breaks, and
Mm.
he was very tough. And it was all in Korean. He barely spoke any English whatsoever, so you had to really pay attention and watch. And I went to the library and started looking up some books, and there was very few to look at.
Mhm.
And so I'm going along and I'm training, and all of a sudden this guy that I know at work, he goes, hey, I heard you're taking martial arts. I said, well, I'm trying to. He goes, well, why don't you come to my school? I said, will you do martial arts? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I said, where's your school at? He goes, well, it's here. And he told me. I said, well, that's 10 minutes away. Whereas the other school I was going to was 40 minutes away.
Mhm.
And, back then, believe it or not, the Tongshudo school was $110 a month.
Whoa. Back then, that was a lot of money.
Exactly. That was a lot. That was a lot of money. And so this guy's going, yeah, he goes, my school's 10 minutes away. He goes, it's, probably about a third of what you're paying. I said, okay. So I went and watched. Sounds good to me. Let's do it. Well, that turned in to be kind of I'm going to say Americanized Matsubashi Shorin. And
What
so
is that? What is that exactly for the audience?
well, Matsubashi Shorin is just another style of Shorin, but the guy that developed this kind of changed things. And what he changed, I'm not a Shorin person, but I just know that he never called it that. He called it
Mhm.
something else. And so as I grew older and I figured out what was what, then I knew where he had picked up his style from.
Mm.
Um, as we go along, I was introduced to Hidehara Agaki, who had come here from Japan, and he was teaching Tongshudo. And as I talked to him, I'm like, well, you're more, I guess, more legitimate to where I could learn Shooteroo from you, go somewhere else in the country, and it's the same exact thing.
Mhm.
Whereas this other so-called modernized style that I had been doing was only particular to his group. So if I went somewhere else in the country, nobody would know what I was doing. And
Right.
so, that in itself isn't bad, but if I wanted to compete somewhere else and go, yeah, let's compete the same styles, it just wouldn't work.
Hmm.
And so I was in that and that's what I've been teaching, the Tanehashida Ryu. But along the way, I have picked up some Shotokan, some Goju-Ryu, and some Shindo Jinru, and actually some Shorin-Ryu. And that's what I teach in my school is more of a eclectic grab of all these things instead of just one narrow-minded style, so to speak.
Right. Right. I just want to go back for a second. You were talking about
Sure.
he was calling everything out in Korean in your first school that you went to. And it reminds me of the first school. Hey, it
Yeah.
reminds me of the first school I went to. And I've talked about this before on different podcasts. But when I first went, it was Taekwondo. And he's calling everything out in Korean. My very first class, I had no idea what he was talking about. And uh he's calling it out and everybody's going in one direction. They're going forward, I'm going backwards.
Mm.
They're
Right.
going left, I'm going right.
Yeah.
I should have done what you did, not thinking at the time. I should have went and done what you did was go and research it so this way I could know what he's talking about. But they never taught you what it
No.
meant. You just had to
No.
figure it out by what everybody else was doing.
Right, exactly. You had to watch and go, okay, well, the corner of my eye, which way are you going? Which way are you going now? And inevitably you'd bump into somebody next to you
Right.
because they packed us in kind of like sardines because the
Yep.
school the school was very narrow.
Mm.
It wasn't very wide. It might have been 20 foot from, one side of the wall to the other, but maybe 30 feet the other direction. And
Right.
so you're lined up long ways in there, shoulder to shoulder. And, it's by grade, so to speak. And back then, I had no clue, here's a white belt, here's red belts, here's black belts and all that. Go line up. All right, well, let me see where the white belts are. And you line up and you're literally you're shoulder to shoulder, and that's how you're doing your training.
Right. Right.
And we would do drills where, you would line up four to a row, stacked up, and you'd move forward. And literally, he wanted you to punch the guy in front of you in the back of the head if he wasn't moving fast enough.
Mm.
Well, guess what? That's all well and fine until you turn around and then the guy is doing it to you on the way back, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So,
Been there, done that.
so you had to be careful on, man, I don't want to piss the guy off in front of me because, he's gonna do the same thing to me.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but it was a way that he was trying to get us to go faster and more in sync.
Right.
And it was great training. I loved it, except that it
Yeah.
was, like I say, it was 40-minute drive and 2.5 hours each night. And, I had a family
Mm,
that I had back then. And so it's a lot of commitment.
hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't trade any of that for the,
that's good. That's good. Yeah, I mean the things that we have memories of. Hey Don, after decades in the martial arts, what continues to drive your passion for training, teaching, contributing to the community?
well, to be honest with you about that, I love it. I love the martial arts. I love the community. There's a lot of great people, within our organization, our community, more so than any other baseball, football, basketball. I know that they have their own, but we have ours. And like I say, there's so many people and so many stories and so many things to learn from. I just yearn for that all the time.
Mm,
But it's the impact that I hope that I'm making on the people that I'm around. And, my students, am I able to in some way, shape, or form change their lives, right? Somewhere
mm,
down the road.
hmm
I'm not going to know it right now, but maybe at some point down the road, maybe I hope they're a better person. And along the way, I've had parents that have said, "Hey, you know what? I remember when my little Johnny was at your school, and he did this, that, or the other, and he's now in college, and man, he's turned into a wonderful young man." And I asked him the other day, about some things, and he brought your name up.
mm,
That when he was learning from you, that things that unbeknownst to me at the time that really stuck with him.
mm.
And that's another reason why I do this. I'm hoping that I do make that change, not to my student, and my students, but maybe I'm at a tournament, and I remember one time I walked into this tournament, and I had a team jacket on, from when I was competing, and I went by, and this kid was sitting there, and his parents were trying to console him because I could tell the kid was scared. It was like, I said, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" And I said, "Is this your first tournament?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, this is my first one." I said, "You'll be fine." I said, "Just have fun, just have a
Mhm.
blast." And, I said, "Good luck today, and then I hope you do fantastic." And, his dad came up afterwards. He goes, "Thank you for saying that to my son." I said, he goes, it kind of calmed him down a little bit. And I appreciate you at least saying, I had no idea. I didn't even know him.
Right,
So,
right.
it's those little impacts that you make along the way that make the difference.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, I know one of the greatest honors for me is when a student gets in touch with me after many years of being gone, even if they quit as a yellow belt,
Right.
and they say, there's this thing that you taught me. I still use it today. Something that I might have taught them about life or something like that. And they say,
Right.
I still use that today. And that's one of the biggest honors about doing this, about teaching students, to me at least.
Exactly. And you never know where that's going to happen at. Like I say, it could be your student, it could be at a tournament, it could be, you're teaching a seminar somewhere, or you're attending a seminar somewhere, or you're just sitting around with a bunch of people just talking.
Right.
Somebody could come in and go, "Oh yeah,
Don, you obviously love it because you've also written books about martial arts and personal development. What
have."
motivated you to begin sharing your experience and perspective through writing? I know I couldn't do it.
Well, I always wanted to do it. And just like I'll say this, if somebody's on the fence about joining martial arts, do it, because you can't wait till tomorrow. And it doesn't matter if you're young, if you're old, if you're out of shape, or if you got a handicap. If you keep waiting to do something, you'll never do it. And so I'd always wanted to write a book, and so I sat down and I started putting thoughts to paper. And the more I wrote, the more I'm like, yeah, okay. And and I said, well, write about what I know. Just put it down and just start putting it together. Um, and so a couple of the best ones that I've written, one is AI in the dojo. Now I have my other life was in computer technology,
Hmm.
and I spent about 35, 40 years in that industry. And so I wrote a book, AI in the Dojo, to help martial arts instructors be smarter about running their business. When AI first came out, it was kind of like a martial arts thing. I'm like, man, I got to jump on this with both feet. And I did, and I jumped into it and researched it, and I'll admit I'm still a beginner at it, but I use it all the time because it helps me in everything that I do. So I
Mm-hmm.
put this book together because I felt it was necessary to share that within our community. You know, a lot of martial arts instructors are focused on teaching. They're not focused on business, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I could help them in their business mind, all the better. And if it works for me, it can work for you, it can work for anybody else. And a couple guys that I've shown this to and have bought the book, they're like, man, he goes, I'm starting to use this all the time. And it's fun. It's making my life easier. So that's one. Um, One of the things I do when traveling is I love to go to antique stores. And I'm kind of a book freak on getting antique books. And so I
We're
wrote,
gonna have to talk about that because I don't know the difference between antiques and old
well,
furniture.
yeah, I mean, so I was into like a math book from 1870. How was math taught in 1870 versus now? And along the way, I've actually found some uh, martial arts books from the turn of the century, not the 2000 century. I'm talking about 1900 century.
Mm.
And so as we're going along, I thought, well, what if I create a story of a guy that searches in an antique bookstore and he finds a book on basically the wisdom of life or how to live a better life. And so I kind of married that with the wisdom that we kind of learn in martial arts together to say, okay, here's this guy, he's in a bookstore, he finds this book of life. And as the story goes through, it talks about how to be a better person, how to live a better life. And so all the character traits and life skills that we teach within martial arts, I incorporated that into this book story. And it turned out super. I've had some friends read it through and they're like, man, it goes, this is fantastic. I can relate to the character, I can relate to the story, all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
so that's really where it came from is just putting down what I do today.
That's great. I like that. For the audience, if you find this information is interesting and helpful, hit like. Back to Don. Don, in your experience, what are some of the biggest lessons martial arts teaches people that they may not realize when they first begin training?
Humility. We're inherently afraid to do things because we don't want to fail. We don't want to embarrass ourselves, so to speak. And in martial arts, it's left side and right side of our brain. And as we know, some people are right side of the brain. That's what they use the most based upon who they are and what occupation they do and things like that. Some people are left side of the brain. And martial arts is right and left. And I even have my students, they're like, well, why am I not getting this? I'm like, because we're doing combinations that are both sides of your brain. You're only one side or the other. We have to practice both sides. And so, the humility of it to say, look, I can do this, but I'm embarrassed about it is kind of life changing for one. And then, of course, out on the competition trail, there's those times when, this has happened to me. I was at a national tournament and gone there, had to be registered at 8 o'clock in the morning and sat around the whole day waiting for my division.
Hmm.
And through that day, you talk with people. And as I was talking with people and they're asking me where I'm from and what style I do and what form I was going to use for my competition, they're like, man, we want to see what you do. And so about 7:30 that night, they called my division, and so you know, I
Yeah.
get I get up in line, and I'm standing there, and I'm kind of pumped up, and they call my name, and I go out in the middle of the floor and say the name of my form, and one move, two moves, three moves, four moves. All of a sudden, I just stopped. I just went totally blank. I mean, my body just shut down. And I know the epitome of doing a form is not to think about it; it's just to do it, right? Just because
Right.
you've practiced it so many times. And so,
Right.
so I'm standing there, not moving, and I can see the look on the center judge, and he's like, "Okay, come on, keep going." But I couldn't, and so finally, I just bowed and walked off the mat, and it still stunned him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" And he stands up and he comes over and he goes, "Do you want to restart?" No. He goes, "Well, why not?" I said, "No, I'm just done. I'm okay." He goes, "Well, you're going to get a zero." Okay. "Well, you're not going to win a trophy or a medal." Okay. I'm, you know, I just can't. It was one of those things where I just couldn't, for whatever reason, I just couldn't do it. Now, some people will go, "Well, that's so embarrassing." It's just, again, humility of saying, "Look, you know what? I tried, I did it, something happened, didn't work. Let me go back to the drawing board, do it again tomorrow.
hmm
No big deal. Just keep trying. It's perseverance of keep at it."
Funny you say keeping at it because, as you know, many martial artists start with enthusiasm. I love that word enthusiasm. But
Right.
even though they start with enthusiasm, they never stick with it long term. In your
Exactly.
opinion, right? Yeah. In your opinion, what separates those who remain committed for life from those who eventually drift away?
It's that word commitment.
hmm
It's the perseverance of commitment. And we don't have that today in our society. Look at the divorce rate. Look at,
mm
you can pick anything, any part of our society, and look at the commitment that there is, and even in my school, I've kids that come in, and it's kind of a rotating door because, way back when I started, we were adults in the class. There were no kids.
Right.
The youngest kid may have been in high school.
hmm
There was no, 6-year-olds and 10-year-olds and all of that stuff like there is today. And that commitment has to be there. Now, I hear parents all the time, "Well, I want my little Johnny to experience all that there is."
Mm.
And I understand that to a point, but then I also see a child who really
Quits.
wants, well, quits, but I also see a child that really wants the martial arts, but their parents make them quit to try something else,
hmm
and they never come back. And yet you, as well as anybody else, know that once you quit in the martial arts, you don't come back. It's
Right.
probably a 98% chance you're never going to. These people that go, "Well, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a break for a
hmm
month or two." That break turns into 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then they start making excuses. "Well, I've got this going
Right.
on or that going on," or, things like that. And, even talking about the kids, it's not necessarily the kids that quit, it's the parents that quit,
hmm
you know.
I used to tell my students all the time, when you quit martial arts, that's the beginning of you quitting everything in your life.
Exactly. And I say the same thing. In fact, I even have an article on my bulletin board, why kids quit and why parents let them quit. And that's the thing. If parents are allowing the children to quit, the tail is wagging the dog, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
then they're going to do that their entire life.
That's right.
They're gonna go on to the next thing, because they don't want to do this because it's hard. Well, of course
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. Everything's hard if you really look into it. It could also be
Right.
fun. It just depends on your mindset of where you're at.
Yeah. If you like the content, hit subscribe. Don, what inspired you to create the Warriors Legacy Hall of Fame?
Well, a couple things. One, I've been involved with some Hall of Fame groups for the past 15, 20 years. And while on the outside, they looked fine and well and all that kind of stuff. And they were great for networking. They were great for making friends and all that. But some of the reality started to set in to where when I pulled back the curtain, there was corruption, there was greed, there was a lack of integrity. And the more it came to be of a play pay to play recognition. And as I sat around, I'm like, you know, we shouldn't have to pay to be recognized.
Mm-hmm.
If someone does well, in their sport or activity, they should be honored. They should be, like, hey, you know what? Thank you. The community thanks you for doing what you've done, for making an impact on people's lives. You shouldn't have to reach in your wallet and pay somebody for that accolade. And so I sat around and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put something together that says, look, and I think I can do it reasonably inexpensive, but still make it professional and still make it heartfelt. That when people receive, this information and this induction, that it really feels good. It makes them appreciate what they've done in their lives. All right. And
Mm-hmm.
so I put this whole thing together, with the certificate and the patches and all of that. Well, then as I'm talking to other people too, I'm like, there's a disconnect between, say, first, second, and third dons and the eighth, ninth, and 10th. And when you're at eighth, ninth, and 10th, you've been in this 35, 40, 50 years. First, second, and third, you're still in your infancy of understanding. And within our society today, I think there's that entitlement group, so to speak. And they're not yearning to learn. So, these first, second, third dons need to start gaining knowledge from this higher level in order to keep things going in the martial arts. And so part of what we want to do is marry those two together, so to speak, because even on our website we have a members resources section, and we want
Mm-hmm.
to put information on there for the community. We've got we've got a section on podcasts and media. If people sit down and go, hey, I want to listen to the stories of martial artists, where can I go? Well, here's a section. Here's a whole list of them.
Mm-hmm.
Pull one up, and start listening to these people, right? Um, we've got a section on articles that if anybody within our community, not members necessarily, but anybody who's written an article or a publication, let's get it out there. Let's put it on there, for people to
Mm-hmm.
to look at and read.
Same
Um,
reason I'm doing these podcasts
exactly.
is for
So
people to learn.
right, and so we need to get that information out to people so that they do
Right.
have a place. It's kind of like I said the other day. We want to be the Google, so to speak, of the martial arts community.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a section on organization. So, organizations that, you want to go learn a different skill, or you want to learn something else, here's an organization to contact. Or, we've got an organization that verifies rank. You don't have an instructor anymore. You don't
Right.
have anybody that can promote you. Well,
Right.
instead of promoting yourself, have it legitimized and go, hey, you know what? Do you guys have a group of grandmasters that can sit and watch me and move me up in rank?
Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, here's an organization to contact for that. So go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I want to get this next question in because we're already working on it, and I don't want to miss anything. So like many organizations, they offer recognition in martial arts, and we already started touching on this, and that's why I want to get this question in to see if there's anything that you want to add to it. What makes the Warriors Legacy Hall of Fame different from the typical Hall of Fame? And you've already mentioned a number of things from
Uh,
what I know from Hall of Fames.
so
So,
for so
is there
first,
anything else that you'd like to add to that?
absolutely. So first off, legacy is earned; it's not purchased, and so we have no fee whatsoever. We don't want you to pull out your wallet and go, hey, give us $200 and we'll give you a certificate, badge, and all this stuff, and induct you into our group. No, we want to honor you free of charge, heartfelt. Here it is. The second thing that we do, which 99% of other places don't, is we actually vet and research people that are nominated. So just because you're nominated doesn't mean that you're inducted,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Most of these Hall of Fames are, hey, you know what? Here's an invitation to come to our event. It's $300 for you to get a trophy or a plaque or a certificate. And oh, by the way, what name do you want on the certificate? What title do you want? Do you want Grandmaster of the Year? Do you want School of the Year? Do you want Black Belt of the Year? Do you want Instructor of the Year? Some of these guys have 150, 200 titles to pick from.
Mm.
And you go to the event and there's 30 Grandmasters of the Year,
Hmm.
right? And
Right.
that's all well and fine. And they go back to their city and they tell the news people and all that, say, hey, I'm Grandmaster of the Year.
Mm.
Well, nobody knows that there were 29 other ones at the same event, right?
Right.
And so, to me, that's not really cool, so to speak. I mean, I as a martial artist don't really feel good about that.
Mm.
So we don't have titles. There are no titles. There's when you're nominated and then you're finally inducted, here's your induction certificate. There's no title on
Right.
there. Um, but we have to look at people's backgrounds to know if they're legitimate. We don't want, a 20-year-old six dan or in my neck of the woods here, we actually have a 9-year-old who's a third dan. And,
Yeah.
so we start at 35 years of experience and we start at a six dan. And then hopefully you've made impacts throughout your career of some sort of kind. You've been promoted within a legitimate time period. So we do look at some time and grades, things like that. We've had people nominated who, for instance, we had a guy who was a ninth dan, and several people nominated this guy. And so we're looking at it and like, okay, because the nominations came in like I had three one day and three the next day on the same person. Like, all right, it's kind of some red flags, but okay. Maybe his students are just overjoyed and want to nominate him. And as we got into his background and did the research, his two fifth dans and a third dan promoted him from seventh to ninth.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not sure in what martial arts community that sounds legitimate. All right. But, you know, it's just not right that your own students promote you 2 grades above what you were. I'm not
Yeah,
sure his
right.
I'm not sure even his students were at the rank that they were. But for us as a legitimate group of martial artists, that's not time and grade. That's not more legitimate. I'd rather have you see to go in front of a board and I can say, okay, well, here's the board that graded you, or here's your instructor that graded you, who is higher ranked than you, and promote you.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like white belt students promoting the green belt in the school to a brown belt. you know? So
Yep.
it's just not legitimate. And so we denied his nomination. We wrote him a letter back and said, look, this just isn't correct.
Mhm.
And sad to say, a lot of people are believing his story that he's a ninth Don.
Yeah, I recently turned one down. I was in Atlantic City. I'm not going to mention any names, but I was in Atlantic City for a big thing such as what yours is, and somebody I know told me to call the guy who runs it to interview him for martial arts past and present. So I call the guy up, I get a hold of him, and he wasn't interested in being interviewed, but he says, "Well, you know what? We're going to put you in for the Hall of Fame." I was like, wait a minute. I called to interview you, not to get into the Hall of Fame." And I said, "Don't you have to be nominated?" He goes, "Well, the person who told you to call me to interview me, that's good enough." And I was like, wait a minute, what about my merits? What about what I've done in the martial arts or anything like that? Well, that's okay because this person, we know this person, and this person told you to call me, so we'll put you in. I said, I don't want it. I don't want it, and I'm not going to accept it.
And
And I
then
didn't.
right, and that's what we don't do. We want to investigate every single person, and we do. We look into everybody's background. We'll search through Facebook posts to make sure that you are legitimate and that you are who you say you are.
Hmm.
Um, you know, we
And I
don't
like that.
we don't want people that have been convicted of crimes,
Hmm.
sexual predators, and we all know that there's too many within our industry.
Hmm.
And so we don't want those. We don't want to, and we don't want people to go and look at our list and go, well, why is that guy in? He's just the first Don, or what has he ever done, in his
Right.
life? And to me, that's what sets us apart from all these other organizations. That again, I hate this. The only thing they do is vet your wallet. You know,
Hmm. Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Right.
how much money can you pay? And, granted, there's some that I've gone to and paid out the money because they did it for the first time, or there was a strong group of people that I wanted to go network with and be around, because that's the only way you're going to meet people in our industry is sometimes to go to these events, um, and make friends. I have friends all over the world because of that.
Hmm.
But I don't want to come back to your event every single year and get a different title. I
Hmm.
don't, or the same title. Some of these events send me things in the mail going, hey, you know what? You're invited back to our event. You can be Grandmaster of the Year again. Well, when you're Grandmaster of the Year for 10 years in a row, it kind of loses its appeal.
Right.
you know, it doesn't mean anything. It's like a Congo line. I don't feel good about that.
Right. And
Um,
that's those reasons are the biggest reasons I'm coming up to your event in June in Ohio. I'm going to let you talk about this in a
Yep.
few minutes, but that's one of the biggest reasons I'm coming up there is because of all the reasons you just mentioned. And I like it so much better than any of the other uh, martial arts Hall of Fames that I know of. So, Don, some of the individuals being honored have more than 50 or even 60 years in the martial arts. What does that level of lifelong dedication represent to you?
We started this back July 1st of last year. And since that time, we have honored over 200 people. And out of that 200, more than 100 of them have got 50 years or more in the martial arts. In fact, three of them have 70 plus years in the martial arts. And so, we're losing that knowledge faster than we want to admit to it. And most of those people, I would bet 95 of those percent of those people don't go to these Hall of Fame events because it's money out of their wallet and they don't feel right about it. And so because of the fact that we're doing this and we're honoring these people for free, we want to them to come and we want to tell their story because that's the legacy within the martial arts. And if we keep losing that legacy without interacting with them, we're losing all that knowledge. It's
Hmm.
going to be gone.
It is, right?
We don't have enough of these gatherings at a low cost for everybody to put people together. The first dons, second dons, third dons, even the white belts that are out there, they now have an opportunity to come and be around all these people with lots of knowledge and hopefully ask them questions, pick their
Hmm.
brain, you know, don't be afraid. Go up and talk to them. They're just regular people.
Right.
It's okay. They'll talk to you, and they love telling their story. I mean, people on podcasts, they love telling their story, right? Well,
They do.
exactly. So we should have gatherings that don't cost an arm and a leg, where people within our community can come together and learn and hear the stories. And that's another thing of what we're all about. And we want to be professional about it. We don't
Hmm.
want to be like this is a circus show or anything like that. Everything to me, everything's got to be more professional. And you have to feel like it was professional. You have to feel like, wow, this is a wow moment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. To the audience, if you find this information is interesting and helpful, hit like. All right, Don, this is the part I've been waiting for.
Right.
In June of this year, 2026, the Warriors Legacy Hall of Fame will be hosting its celebration weekend. Please well, you don't have to tell me, but tell the audience what people can expect from that event.
So our event's going to be June the 19th and June the 20th at the Quality Inn and Suites in Richfield, Ohio. And Friday night, we're going to have a meet and greet. We're going to have a cash bar. We're going to have some food, and we're going to sit around and we're going to tell stories. And I've got some great individuals coming. I've got a whole list of grandmasters, plus a couple of living legends. Bill Superfoot Wallace will be there.
Oh, Bill's
Um,
going to be that good.
Bill's going to be
Good.
there. He's going to, and Bill, if you've ever been around Bill, he's wonderful to talk to and just a blast to be around.
Yes, he
Um,
is. That's where we met, actually, at his birthday party.
exactly. Yeah. We had a great time there. And, he's 80 years old, but he still kicks like he's 20.
Yep.
But, you know, we've got Billy Blanks from Taibo Fitness
Great.
is coming in. Uh, I've got 9 instructors from around the country coming in. So not everybody's local to Ohio here. I've got people
Fantastic.
coming in from other parts of the country, and I've even got a retired FBI agent who was the chief of the behavioral unit. He's going to be there, and in fact, he's our keynote speaker for the evening. And there's just going to be a wide range of grandmasters and masters and these living legends to sit around and talk with Friday night. That's what we're looking for. Is
It
just
sounds like it's going to be a great event.
and then of course on Saturday, we're gonna have seminars from 8:45 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon.
Hmm.
Um, and I've got this strong lineup of people teaching that I was talking to one of our guys the other day, and I said, if I was just coming to this event and, there's three instructors per hour, so three different rooms to choose from, which of those three could I choose? Because I want to go to all three of them every hour.
Mhm.
I want, I want,
Right,
I want to learn from all of them, but I have to pick and choose, right?
right,
Or I
right.
could bounce back and forth between all three rooms. You could do that too.
Yeah,
But
but you lose a lot that way.
you do. But the ability and to come and go, wow, such a strong core of individuals that are teaching.
Right.
Um,
But any seminars I've ever been to have always been that way. It's not just you don't really just find one person doing a seminar for everybody. You always find
right.
two or three going on at the same time.
Exactly. And
You
and
know,
and the other part is too, what is different is I've got three people teaching their versions of self-defense. Okay. Plus Billy
hmm.
Blank's doing Taibo, which means
Right.
that this event isn't just for martial artists. It's for non-martial artists as well.
Hmm.
Because as you know, going around to these events, you take your wife, your girlfriend, your fiance, or whatever, they're they kind of feel left out. They're off to the side somewhere, things like
Right.
that. They're not involved, right? And
Hmm.
so what we want to do is involve them. We want them to become part of what you're doing and everybody else is doing, to say, look, you may not be a martial artist, but we have seminars that are still good for you and for you to attend. Okay.
Right.
And so if we can create that environment of involvement of the husband and wife or or friend, neighbor, whomever you want to bring, that's fantastic.
Hmm.
They're not sitting off to the side. They're now part of our community. And that's the other thing we want to do. It's for everybody.
That's great. I mean, from everything you've said with about this great event that I can't wait to be at, by the way, and I will be there. What kind of experience do you hope attendees take away from this wonderful weekend that you're putting on?
First off, I hope they go, wow. I hope they go, I hope
Okay.
that I hope they do this again because I want to come back. I learned so much today that I want to come back. I hope they want to become involved. And beyond, our induction for people in the martial arts, and we have level, so to speak. We have the under 50 people, and we have the over and above 50 people, and we do something special for them. But we also
Hmm.
have a black belt society where any black belt can join. It's a small lifetime fee, and you get a patch and a certificate and all that stuff. And it's hopefully it's supportive of what we're doing. And so anybody can come to our website and look things up and do stuff. And we want more people involved. We want to say, look, what do you want? What can we do for you? What can we do for you as a martial artist? Where can we help you out? Where can what can I do for you, since I had as a podcaster to help you out in what you're doing?
Hmm.
Because that's what it's all about. It's each of us helping each other out, right?
Yes.
Um, and with that being said, too, we have a guy coming in from Japan,
Really?
So he's a teacher at a university in Japan. And so along the way, he got nominated. We looked into his background and he's legitimate. And so we
Hmm.
we inducted him. Well,
What style?
Chito,
Okay.
Chito. And
Okay.
his university was so happy and so thrilled that he got this recognition that they wrote this entire news article and put it in the university news and on their website and everything. And they are sending him over here to
Hmm.
teach, or not, I shouldn't say teach, but to enlighten people in how they can go to Japan and train. So he's going to be talking about teaching opportunities in Japan.
Great.
You want to go there and train? Well, here's a liaison to talk to. Here's somebody that lives there, that teaches there,
Hmm.
that you can go, look, you know what? I'd love to come to Japan and see the countryside and this, that, and the other. Well, here you go. Here's an instant contact.
Mm, that's great.
And yeah, so he's coming in and he's gonna have a vendor table and have literature and all that stuff for people. And then he's gonna have a session at the end of the day. Anybody that wants to sit in and learn more.
Mm,
And here again, that's what we want. We don't want to just be, here's your certificate, give us money, we'll see you next
right.
year. No,
Right.
no. Here we want to honor you, and we want to honor you throughout the year on our website. We want to have that community of helping each other out all year long, not just one day. And that, to me, that's what makes us different from all these other groups that are out there.
And I'll tell you, from knowing a lot of the other groups that are out there, that's a major difference right there. All the things you mentioned are major differences. I'm going to be
Well,
back in a minute. I just have an announcement to make, and we got a couple more questions for you, so don't go away. I'd like to take a moment to thank you all for watching. I truly hope you're enjoying these interviews as much as I am doing them. If you are, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. It really helps keeps us going. If you feel led to support the show, go to martialartspastandpresent.substack.com, hit about at the top of the page, and scroll down to PayPal. Every bit of support means a lot, and it helps keep us on the air. Thank you. All right, Don, we got a few more questions.
sure, absolutely. Shoot 'em at
Okay.
me.
All right. I like to end the interview with something lighthearted.
All right.
Give the audience a funny story of something martial arts that happened to you, either on the mat or off the mat, or in a tournament, whatever it might be.
One of the things about going to events all over the country and meeting people and getting to know who they are is that you never know where that friendship is going to take you. And for some of my friends, it's been very powerful. It's been life changing. And several years ago, actually, it's been 11 years ago because I just it just popped up on my Facebook page today of how long this guy and I have been friends. There was a group that was putting together a team to go compete in Cancun, and I said, "Well, that's pretty cool." I got invited to go on this team, go to Cancun, and compete against all these other countries. Well, let's go do it. And so we packed up and flew down there and didn't we knew a couple people that were going to be there and knew the promoter. And when we got there, I ended up kind of befriending and talking to this gentleman from the Philippines. And he's out of Des Moines, Iowa, who he will be at our event. He's actually on my board. And
Okay.
so we're there and a couple days and so we're hanging out and having drinks and eating and having a great time. Well, we get to the competition and it's just us. There are no other countries. It's just us, you know. And so we go, oh, okay. And turns out that him and I ended up being in the same division against each other, which was fine. I mean, you know, we're out there, we're having fun. Uh, so we compete, and he took first, I took second, another guy took third. Well, they had a podium set up for taking pictures, and we go to the podium and we get up on our respective spots, and we're standing there, and I look over, and I'm still taller than him. and, and so I like Bobby, thought you took first place. He goes, what? I said, I'm still taller than you, and I'm standing on the second place position, you know? And so if you just looked at the picture real quick, you know, it looked like I took first, he took second, and this other guy took third. Well, you know, we're up there and we're laughing about it, right? Because you know, it's like if you're like, oh man, he goes, I really wanted to be taller than you right now. I'm like, yeah, well, too bad, you know. so well, that that right there started this friendship that has evolved into this person being more than a friend. They're not only my martial arts brother, but they're a real brother and a real family.
Hmm.
And you know, his family and my family, you know, our wives we travel together. I go to Iowa, they come to Ohio, we train together. You know, his students know me very well, and my students know them very well. And so it's blossomed into this thing that I never would have thought of that would happen,
Right.
beyond belief. You know, all from, you know, just kind of making fun of ourselves, so to speak, you know, on that stage,
Hmm.
and it taking off. And you know, because people always ask us how we met. So like I
Right.
say, he's from the Philippines. I'm from here in the United, you know, from here, and not that we can't be friends, but you know, it just blossomed, and so that's one of the powerful things about the martial arts is that you know we can become friends and more than friends, and we truly are family.
Hmm.
You know, within this community, to me, more so than anything else I've ever been involved in. Um,
For those who don't have an ego trip.
exactly, exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, I was down in Texas last year and I met this guy from Canada. And it was kind of like the same connection. It's like, you know, we're on the same page, we're talking, we're conversing, we're throwing ideas back and forth with each other. And him and I probably talk 2, 3 times a month. And in fact, after my event in Ohio, I'm going the next weekend. I'm up in Canada teaching at his event.
Wow.
So here again, I may impact his students in some way, shape, or form,
Hmm.
right? But
Sure.
that's what it's all about. And
Right. Yeah. I always say, you know, it's like when I really had my school going, I always told my students, I'm never going to teach you everything.
right,
So I want you to go to other seminars and do other things and so on and so forth, learn from other instructors. You know, it's only the ones with the ego trips that don't want that. You know, so I always told my students, yeah, I want you to go to these seminars. I want you to learn because there's things I don't know everything.
right.
You know, even though the students think you do, but you
Well,
know,
uh, yeah, and you know, part of that too is what I call the parent syndrome.
yeah,
You know,
I know
and
where you're going. Go
you
ahead.
know,
Yeah.
and so you know, you'll tell a student, hey, you know what, you need to correct this, you need to do this, you need to do that to make yourself better. And they go to a tournament, and you know, I always introduced my students to other instructors at a tournament. And I go, look, I may not be around,
Hmm.
But if you need help or you have a question, here's a person that you can go and talk to or ask questions of. All right. And it's okay. Go, please go, go talk to them. Well, then
Okay.
inevitably they'll turn around and tell that student the exact same thing that I've been talking to them about in class or at the tournament, right? And
Mhm.
my student will come up to me and go, well, I was over there and, Sensei so-and-so told me to do this, this, and this. And I look at him, I go, yeah, that's kind of the same thing I was telling you before,
Right.
right? But because it's, I'm kind of like their parent to them, but this person's off to the side and says the same thing, and it finally just registers, in their mind.
Hmm.
But there's things that we do, and the humility of learning and failing and that kind of stuff, and making friends all over the country and all over the world. It's just fantastic. I can't get enough of this.
Hmm. Well, Don, let me ask you this, because we've really gone quite a while. Where can people learn more about you and the Warrior Legacy Hall of Fame, and of course your upcoming celebration this June?
So our website is warriorslegacyhof.com. You can go on there. You can see all the people that we've inducted. You can click on and learn about my team of people that I put together that help support this organization and that back everything that we do, and we're all in the same like mindset. There's actually a blog section on there that I started putting together, just thoughts on different topics. So that goes out every Tuesday, and hopefully people are reading it to inspire me to keep doing it. Because if nobody reads it, I really don't want to keep doing it. So,
That's how I feel about this podcast.
yeah, exactly. And that's why we want to get people like yourself out there. We want, unless somebody comes along your Facebook page or somebody says, hey, I was on Sensei Ed's podcast. They don't know about it. So we want to make sure that,
Right.
that your link is on there.
Good.
So in our member resources section, we want that information for people to come to. We want people to go, where can I look at for stuff at? But we have all of the different sections. We've got the inductees, we've got Black Belt Society, we've got our Warriors Legacy group. All of those people are listed on there with their name and city. And there's no we don't put their email or phone number on there, but you could go, hey, you know what? Here is so and so from my neck of the woods. Maybe I should call him up and find out more about what's going
Hmm.
on.
Right.
And so hopefully people do that as well too. Um, so again, on our website has that. It has everything about the banquet. It has everything about our banquet sponsors. So it is the go-to place.
Well, Don, I want to thank you very much for allowing me to interview you today. I've enjoyed this time. And of course, I'm going to see you in June, but hopefully we can have you back on again, and sometime in the future.
Thank you for having me today. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And anytime you want to get together and talk about anything in the martial arts, I'm up for it. I kind of get razzed every so often about, well, you talk too much. you
Don, don't
know,
worry about it. Everybody I have on this on that I interview talks a lot, so
yeah,
don't worry about it. You're no different than anyone
I,
else.
I guess it's part of our nature.
Yep.
It's kind of like my fiance goes, well, whenever we go somewhere, you're always off talking to somebody. You always know somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Right.
matter. It doesn't matter what part of the country we're in. You know somebody somewhere, and you're off talking. You know,
Yep. Absolutely.
she got to tell me 45 minutes before she wants to leave. We're It's 2:30. We're leaving at 3:15, just to give you a heads
That's
up.
all, only 45 minutes?
Well, I mean, usually 3:15 comes and she'll come over and I'll go, yeah, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, another 45 minutes.
Another 45 minutes. Like hitting a snooze alarm, in the morning. Just
Absolutely. All right, Don, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
All right, thank you.
Make sure you look into Super Patch. It's great for boosting immunity, athletic performance, pain reduction, and much more. Visit mapap.superpatch.com to learn more. Thank you for joining us today. To learn more about us, visit our Substack at martialartspastandpresent.com. If you would like to support us, go to patreon.com/martialartspastandpresent. If you like the content and have not yet subscribed, you can find us on all of the major platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube.